1944, July. German Wehrmacht troops in Italy, using trucks just like this one, empty a villa that contains hundreds of the most important masterpieces in the great Florence museums. Things worth more than $1 billion. It was one of the great art thefts in history. Some of those works are still missing today.
At the end of World War II, the Allies made a series of shocking discoveries. Hidden in trains, bunkers, and deep underground, they found mountains of stolen treasure.
That must have been like going into Aladdin's cave.
Hitler and the Nazis had looted an entire continent and committed the greatest theft in history. Now, a team of investigators is opening up cold case files of Nazi plunder still missing today.
We're talking about things that are worth tens of millions of dollars.
Robert Edsel is an expert in Nazi-looted treasure.
Hundreds of thousands of objects are still missing. Well, we have a lot of digging to do.
Joining him is Second World War historian James Holland.
None of this was really his. He'd just taken it.
And investigative journalist Connor Woodman.
And this is a genuine treasure hunt. We dig a hole in the ground and we find those cases.
Their mission, uncover new clues.
Oh gosh, this is it.
Explore Nazi hideouts.
Whoever built this brick wall really didn't want anyone to get through to the other side.
Find out how the treasure was stolen and where it might be now.
What a piece of history.
At the headquarters of the Monuments Men Foundation, an organization that has found and returned many Nazi-looted treasures to their rightful owners, founder Robert Edsel and his wife, Italian art historian Anna Bottinelli, are opening a brand new investigation, the plundering of Italy.
Proclama del capo del governo.
At the start of World War II, Italy, under fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, was Hitler's closest partner. But in 1943, everything changed. Allied forces swept into the south of the country. In the wake of the invasion, Mussolini was toppled, and the new Italian government announced its surrender.
Ogni atto di ostilità contro le forze anglo-americane deve cessare da parte delle forze italiane in ogni luogo.
Incredible.
I know. This is the original radio broadcast from the leader of Italy speaking to the nation on September 8, 43, announcing the armistice of Italy. I mean, this is what my grandmother heard. She heard the message and went out in the streets celebrating that the war was over.
They all thought it was over.
And it was just the beginning, wasn't it?
I mean, it's the inflection point when the Italians are no longer allies to the Germans, and the Germans are enraged, they're embittered, they want revenge.
The day after the surrender, the Germans seized Rome and occupied the country. Italy became a battlefield as the Allies advanced from the south, and Italian partisans fought the Germans to the rear. More than 350,000 soldiers and civilians would lose their lives in one of the deadliest campaigns in the West. And for the Nazis, it was a chance to steal on an epic scale. From the gold in the Bank of Italy in Rome to the cultural treasures of Florence, nothing was safe from Nazi looting.
There's still so much missing.
Thousands of things missing, and that is the focus of our investigation.
The team heads to Italy on the trail of Nazi loot. Investigative journalist Connor Woodman begins the search for the lost gold north of Rome, while Robert and historian James Holland begin their investigation in Florence, scene of one of the greatest art thefts in history. In the summer of 1944, Florence was on the front lines of the war in Italy. The Allies were advancing north, and the Germans were in full retreat. The city of Florence and its contents were now in peril.
The Allies have been fighting up the leg of Italy for the best part of a year, and now on the 3rd of August 1944, the British 8th Army were nudging into the southern outskirts of Florence. It must have been an incredibly dangerous time for Florence, because you've got British 8th Army advancing from the south, you've got German rearguards in the city, and you've got the fascists getting out of there. So suddenly you've got a vacuum, and when you've got a vacuum, that's when bad elements come in. And don't forget that in Florence, you've got some of the most priceless works of art in the entire world.
A city of incomparable beauty, it was the jewel of the Italian Renaissance and a repository for many of the world's finest treasures. Hanging on the walls of the Uffizi Gallery were some of the greatest of all Renaissance masterpieces, facing destruction or theft, their fate now hung in the balance. In a desperate bid to gain time and slow down the Allied advance into the city, the Germans mined the bridges across the river.
Suddenly the city was ripped apart by a series of massive explosions. Vast amounts of smoke and grit and dust were flung into the air. When the dust all settled again, 5 out of the 6 bridges across the Arno had been completely destroyed. Might have been a massive act of architectural vandalism, but it certainly did the trick, because it took the British another week to get into the city. And when they did get here, they had no idea what the retreating Germans had taken with them.
By the time the Allied soldiers reached the Uffizi, its galleries were empty, and hundreds of Renaissance masterpieces by the likes of Cranach and Rubens had been taken by the retreating Germans. How the theft was perpetrated is revealed in this telegram. Scarce resources were diverted from the war effort for the removal of the art treasures. 1,000 litres of gas and 13 trucks were requisitioned for their transportation. A total of 529 paintings and 162 sculptures were now heading northwards.
Hundreds of masterpieces from the Florence collections, worth billions of dollars, were put on these trucks with no protective covering, no crates, no tarp on top, and moved over bomb-cratered roads to the north.
This telegram also reveals the name of the man who signed the order facilitating the theft: General Karl Wolff, head of the SS in Italy.
SS General Karl Wolff is a fascinating figure. Hitler looks at him with great attraction. He's tall, he's blonde, he has this Aryan appearance in the mind of Hitler. He's well educated, he's cultivated. Hitler has a special assignment for Wolff. He sends him to Italy to be head of all the SS troops.
The SS were the most feared and fanatical of all Hitler's forces. This rare colour footage, shot at Hitler's home at the Berghof, reveals Wolff operating at the very centre of the SS hierarchy. Standing alongside him are 2 of the most notorious men in the Nazi regime. Leader of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, and one of the principal architects of the Holocaust, Reinhard Heydrich.
In the course of the war, Wolff issues orders to resolve some of the bottlenecks taking trains of Jews to concentration camps. It's hard to find a photograph of Himmler at any of the concentration camps he visits during the war without having Wolff by his side.
700 of the world's most precious works of art were now in the hands of a top-ranking SS general on the Allied list of wanted war criminals, their destination unknown. For Robert, the investigation heads north. Connor Woodman is in central Italy on the trail of Italy's missing gold. Two weeks after the Italian surrender, Nazi SS trucks had pulled up outside the Bank of Italy in Rome and had been loaded with bullion. More than 100 tons are known to have been shipped out of the country. But what happened to the rest remains a mystery to this day.
I'm about an hour north of Rome on my way to Monte Soratte. The legend is that the Nazis buried a lot of gold underneath that mountain, so I've arranged to meet Gregory Paluccio, the guy that knows more about it than anybody else.
Buried deep beneath this mountain is a vast bunker complex, which in September 43 was commandeered by the Germans as their army headquarters. After the war, the entire mountainside was a restricted military zone, and what was hidden beneath was top secret. 10 years ago, local historian Gregory Paolucci was given permission to enter the bunker by the Italian authorities.
And these would have been the barracks in here. These would have been the rooms where the soldiers were sleeping.
Yes.
So this is a military-controlled area.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so when did you get access to this place?
Well, 10 years ago, it's a secret place, kept from Italian army. There were kilometers of tunnels, but nobody have seen.
Until 10 years. So this place and the tunnels underneath it, nobody has been into those tunnels since the end of the war until just a few years ago.
Every day we discover something.
Something new.
I show you, yes, something strange or something new.
Every day, even now, you're still discovering new things.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I can't wait to see.
It's a fantastic place for this.
Yeah, show me.
Let's go.
All right, I mean, you can really see the mountain here now. It's the perfect defense.
Yeah. Attention there.
Gregory has lived his entire life in the shadow of Monte Soratte, leading the research into its history. Nobody knows more about its secrets than he does.
And it goes down.
Beneath the mountain is the bunker, a network of tunnels and caverns, much of it untouched since the Germans were here.
Wow, Gregory. They are vast. Do you have an idea of how big this bunker complex is?
For sure, more than 4 kilometers.
4 kilometers of tunnels. I mean, they just go on and on and on.
Deep beneath Monte Soratte, 40 kilometers north of Rome, is a massive bunker. According to legend, around 70 tons of gold, worth over $2 billion today, were hidden somewhere in these tunnels by the German army in 1944.
Wow, they are vast.
Connor Woodman is on its trail with local expert Gregory Paolucci.
And when were they built?
They built at the end of the 30s for Italian government.
So they were built by Mussolini, built by the Italians.
Yes, by the Italians.
So in 1943,
Yes, German occupied.
when the Germans occupied, they took over the tunnels.
Yes.
Right, okay, I see.
It was the operational nerve center of the German army in Italy. More than 1,000 soldiers lived and worked here. Some tunnels have been restored to their original state, but others are still off-limits and only accessible to Gregory's team.
And it looks like they were having quite a fine time here, to
Yes.
be honest. There's a few wine bottles.
Like a bar, yes.
This looks like the good stuff.
Yes.
That's a champagne bottle.
And there was, yes, take a look there. There was beer. There was German beer, classical,
Right.
terracotta.
And so each room, you think, would have been given, it would have had a specific purpose.
There was a city, an underground city. You need everything.
Parts of the bunker collapsed after an Allied air raid. But beneath this rubble, there was once a fully operational cinema, a bakery, a beer hall, and on the walls of the mess room, a homesick Wehrmacht officer painted a mural of Dresden. Gregory has found a single-box brownie photograph showing life in the bunker during the occupation.
Wow. German soldier in a gallery just like this one. He's writing a letter home.
Probably this room was used for like an hospital.
Like the infirmary.
Yes, infirmary. Like, take a look there. Those little bottles.
Oh yeah, it's a pill bottle.
Yes. Look at this. Really nice. Probably a bell.
To call the nurse.
The ventilation system.
Wow.
All the bunker...
Like a big fan?
Yes.
Running ventilation
all of the
system.
4 kilometers of bunker have an heating system. Not conditioning, but heating.
Right.
Yes.
That's pretty sophisticated. I mean, it's all evidence, isn't it? It's all evidence of life underground.
You can touch the history, the real history.
Part of that history is the legend of the gold. But is there any evidence beyond tabloid headlines and wild speculation?
Gregory, the other thing that I know about this bunker is the legend that the Nazis, in their haste to retreat, may have buried or hidden some gold here. What do you think about that legend? Is it possible?
I think yes.
You think yes?
I think that the gold passed, for sure, in this bunker. We have many witnesses that have seen the boxes of gold at 69 or 72 tons of gold, so a huge quantity. Never found, for sure, from an Italian bank,
right.
National Bank of Italy.
72 tons of gold would fit into a space smaller than 3.5 cubic meters, equivalent to the size of a small car. There are at least 4 kilometers of tunnels, and probably many more which remain to be discovered.
This bunker complex is full of these huge chambers, many of which, like this one, are filled with rubble. And then you'll see these holes. I mean, look how far down that goes. It's easily deep enough to hide away 72 tons of gold. You know, it might seem as though Gregory and his team have been here for a few years, but really that's only long enough to scratch the surface of the potential of what could be hidden in this place.
While Connor searches for the lost gold, Robert Edsel and Anna Bottinelli are on the trail of the Florentine treasures. They know 700 works of art were stolen from the galleries of Florence, loaded onto trucks and taken north with the retreating Germans. One of the main culprits was General Karl Wolff, head of the SS in Italy. To investigate the part played by the SS in Nazi looting, they go to the Siviero Archive, a unique collection of investigative files documenting Italian artworks missing since the war.
And I found something great. Here it is.
Quadri paintings.
Missing from the collection at Villa delle Pianore.
Pianore, yeah.
It's an original report listing dozens of masterpieces by Renaissance artists stolen from one of the most significant and valuable private collections in Tuscany, the Villa Panor. James Holland goes to the scene of the crime. In the summer of 1944, this palace was on the front lines of the battle for Italy and had been commandeered by the Waffen-SS, the most feared and infamous of all Nazi forces in Italy.
Gosh, what a place. You can see why the 16th Waffen-SS would want to requisition this. I mean, here we are up in the hills. This is the start of the Gothic line, the main German line of defense.
Under heavy bombardment, the Waffen-SS had suffered severe casualties, and the Villa Panor became a field hospital. Its owner had already fled, leaving his palace and its contents to their mercy.
I mean, this is a crime scene document. Like the police report the minute they got there, handwritten out.
Well, I've got to say, it's a magnificent place. Incredible wood-carved ceiling and beautiful parquet floor. And, oh my God, look at this. That's some roof. When the SS got here, it would have been absolutely stuffed full of fine furniture, treasures, works of art, tapestries.
Look at this list of names.
So many of them, I think it's more than 50. Here, 5 or 6 canalettos. I mean, how about that?
I mean, if it's in good condition, it could be $10 million. They're talking about 5 or 6 of them? I mean, a bad canaletto's $2 million, $3 million.
Feels rather sad and run down now, I have to say. There's sort of wistful air about the place. And while the 16th Waffen-SS used this as a hospital, they also absolutely trashed the place. And when they left just over a month later, all they left behind was a pile of empty picture frames.
I mean, they've cut these canvases right out of the frames with a bayonet or a knife.
The whole place was completely cleared out.
Like the Florentine treasures, the paintings from the Villa Panor were shipped north.
That's the treasure map right there, is trying to find these things.
Absolutely. That's what's missing.
The paintings were now in the hands of the Waffen-SS. They were guilty of some of the worst crimes in Italy, from looting to massacres. Just 10 kilometers from the Villa Panor lies the village of Sant'Anna di Stazzema. On the 12th of August 1944, troops from the same 16th Waffen-SS division arrived here at dawn.
For the 16th Waffen-SS in this area, life had become extremely difficult, to put it mildly. To the front, they had the Allies shooting and firing at them every time they moved, and to the rear, they had partisans making their life a misery. When they learned that this part of the mountains had become swollen with people, they assumed it was the partisans concentrating here. The trouble was, how do you distinguish between a civilian and a partisan? The solution is you don't. You just shoot everybody.
100 villagers inside the church were systematically machine-gunned and the church set alight. The SS then set about slaughtering the entire village. James has come to meet Enrico Pieri, who as a 10-year-old lived in this house with his family and relatives.
So this is where you were, up here?
Sì. Questo è una pallottola, vedi, che hanno sparato di là, sopra. E i tedeschi sono scesi di qua, dal bosco, e sono entrati nella cucina, e qui hanno ammazzato tutte e 2 le famiglie.
Wow.
Enrico survived by hiding underneath the kitchen stairs, from where he witnessed the massacre of his entire family.
Qui sono stati seppelliti i miei genitori.
So this is the grave. I mean, how many members of your family did you lose that day?
Della famiglia più ristretta, 10 persone, ma i parenti, di più, molti di più, molti di più.
By noon, when the SS guards sat down for lunch in the grounds of the burning church, 540 villagers, including 120 children and 8 pregnant women, were dead. As the Germans retreated north with their loot, the fate of both SS war criminals and Italy's artistic treasures were now inextricably linked. Beneath Monte Soratte, Connor Woodman is on the trail of looted Nazi gold. According to legend, 70 tons are hidden somewhere in the maze of tunnels stretching 4 kilometers underground. A section of the wartime bunker became a top-secret military site in the 1960s. The tunnels were reinforced with concrete 2 meters thick, and it became a Cold War nuclear bunker. But stories of the hidden gold have always persisted. Local historian Gregory Paolucci believes a recently declassified government report lends new credibility to the legend.
5 years ago it was unclassified, and this is the main proof that the Italian government, the Italian Secret Service, the intelligence, searched.
A previously unpublished Senate investigation reveals the Italian Secret Service not only believed in the existence of a mystery treasure, but carried out their own search.
So that changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Because
Yes.
we're not talking about some crazy legend that's
Yes,
based on
yes.
myth and rumour. The Italian government took this seriously enough
Yes.
to send the army in here in 1960 to do a
Yes.
search. And do we know what they found?
You can see the answer, omissus.
What they found, if anything, remains a secret to this day.
We don't know, it's classified.
So why don't, if I was to say, let's work on the basis that maybe there are still 70 tons of gold hidden somewhere in this bunker complex. The billion-dollar question is where? Where would you begin to look for it?
During the German occupation, eyewitnesses in the nearby village of Sant'Oreste claimed to know the answer. Gregory takes Connor to meet a man who's spent a lifetime piecing together the evidence. Now in his 80s, Baron Giuseppe Fortezza believes he has solved the riddle of the mountain.
Stato nelle gallerie del Monte Soratte.
So this is the place where you were digging. So this is a brick
Sì,
wall,
muro.
Muro di mattoni.
and this is a gallery, a big
Sì,
tunnel.
questo ho
Un
fatto
grande
io.
tunnel, sì. He made this drawing.
The Baron's drawing shows a brick wall which he exposed in 1989 after excavating a secret tunnel, making him the first civilian to dig for the gold inside the bunker.
So we have a secret tunnel, and at the end of the secret tunnel we have a brick wall,
Yes.
and
Beyond
behind that
this.
there might be a space that's between these other two tunnels. So it's the perfect place to hide the gold. So why did you not find the gold in 1989?
Perché è protetto anche dallo Stato Maggiore dell'esercito italiano, quindi a un certo momento finite ricerche e basta.
The Baron got this far and no further in his search.
So in that case, do you think the gold is still behind that wall?
Lì le cassette stanno tutte lì,
Yes.
ce ne sono
The
79.
boxes, 79 boxes are still there.
79 casse.
For sure, it's still there.
Certo.
So for certain, yeah.
Since the Baron was forced to abandon his attempt in 1989, nobody else has been granted permission to see what lies behind this brick wall.
Okay, let's try.
Until today. In Florence, the team are investigating one of the biggest art heists in history. In the summer of 1944, German soldiers had seized more than 700 paintings and sculptures from the Florentine galleries and 60 paintings from the Villa Panor. As the Allies advanced north, the Germans retreated to their last holdout in South Tyrol, high in the Italian Alps. In the final days of the war, 1 million German soldiers and all their stolen loot crowded into these remote mountain passes. What would become of them now depended on the actions of one man, General Karl Wolff, head of the SS in Italy. James Holland has come to Bolzano, where in April 1945, Wolff was holed up in his luxury palace HQ.
I really don't think I've ever been in a building that's so overtly fascist as this, and what's incredible about it is that all the fixtures and fittings, all the furniture is original. It's like going back in a time warp. I suppose the big difference, though, was that back then, this building was stuffed full of loot. There was sides of beef, there was vintage champagne, there were all sorts of treasures, and there were also lots and lots of paintings.
By the spring of 1945, the war was all but lost for the Germans. Knowing he was on the Allied list of wanted war criminals, Wolff made a play to save his own skin and strike a deal. Using the Florentine Treasures as a bargaining chip, he opened secret negotiations with America's chief spy master in Europe, Allen Dulles, head of the OSS, the precursor to the CIA. To find out what exactly was being agreed behind closed doors, James is meeting historian Gerald Steinacker.
Even a person like Dulles, who was, later head of the CIA in the 1960s, who had a lot of experience with people who were lying and cheating and spies and so on. But Wolff could convince him that that Wolff is a reasonable person and not a fanatical Nazi, SS criminal and mass murderer.
I'm sure he said to Dulles also, when it comes to it, I can dish the dirt on all sorts of people, but I need to know that I'm going to be looked after.
And I think part of that is also artwork. So he brings in the artwork and says, listen, here under my command, there's very precious Italian artwork here, really belonging to humanity, for all of humanity, and I can save it. I'm the man, I can save it, and I'm gonna offer you that as well.
By surrendering early and bringing the war in Italy to a premature end, Wolff's actions may have saved thousands of lives, including his own. Unlike other high-ranking Nazis, he escaped prosecution and almost certain death at the Nuremberg trials. As for the Florentine treasures, their hiding place was finally revealed. High in the Italian Alps, Allied soldiers discovered the secret repositories used by Wolff. One of the most spectacular finds was in the village of San Leonardo, where they discovered an Aladdin's cave containing some of the greatest Renaissance masterpieces in the world.
It's incredible to think that here, the village jail, the Americans found some of the Uffizi Gallery's finest works of art, Rubens and Cranach's just stacked up against the wall.
But the Allies were in for a shock. Not only had some of the paintings been damaged, the final tally of paintings didn't add up. 10 of the Florentine treasures had mysteriously disappeared.
Makes you wonder what happened to the art they didn't find here. Where did that get to?
With 1 million German soldiers carrying 1 million backpacks and facing an uncertain post-war future, there were 1 million possible suspects. Each of them with the motive and the opportunity to take one of the Florentine 10.
At the end of the war in May 1945, this was full of soldiers, of former members of the German army, of the SS. They're all stranded here, thousands and thousands of people.
And of course, down there in the village, there's all these amazing art treasures from the Uffizi. I mean, this is your opportunity to take things, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Get things under the radar.
Absolutely.
So if you had a backpack full of treasure, you could hop over the Alps to Austria.
There was absolutely a possibility, and these routes were known to the local peoples, to the local smugglers, for example, were smuggling all kinds of things before and after the war.
Yeah.
And people who were stealing artwork, for example, or other things, would escape over the mountains into Austria and then further on.
What happened to the Florentine 10 would remain a mystery for another 20 years. The first clue to their fate came when 2 masterpieces by Pollaiuolo turned up in the possession of a German waiter in California who was having them restored.
Here are the 2 paintings by Pollaiuolo. He was known for being able to paint these figures in action. These are the first 2 out of the 10 that are found, and they're not found until 1963, and of all places in the United States. These 2 small paintings, the size of postcards, people able to put them in their pocket, and in fact, that's exactly what happened. German soldiers came across them. One of the soldiers looked at them and said, "These look like they're worth something." And they picked them up, and they disappeared from view.
Information from the waiter in Pasadena led to a German butcher in Munich, and 5 more paintings were recovered. That leaves 3 of the original Florentine 10 still to be found, more than 70 years after the end of the war. The most significant of these is a still life by Van Huysum, for which there is only this black and white reproduction.
They're spectacular, each one of them. You see them in the most important museums around Europe.
That's exactly
and they're
right.
always sought after, and even in auctions.
Highly sought after. I mean, sometimes Van Hysum sells for $3 to $4 million.
This is not as small as the Palaiolos, but it's still pretty portable, isn't it?
You can sure see how these things walked.
Imagine what it would be to have the real thing in front of us.
You know, on the one hand, I'm sitting here looking at the beauty of it, this important 18th century flower painter from Holland, and then also, where the heck is this thing?
According to the Baron, 300 meters beneath Monte Soratte, this brick wall is perhaps all that stands between Connor Woodman and more than $2 billion of Nazi gold. In 1989, the Baron reached the same spot before the military stopped his excavations. Connor and his guide to the bunker, Gregory Paolucci, now have a chance to go one further and see what's on the other side. After drilling through the brick, Connor gets first glimpse.
See. Brick.
Brick.
Oh, behind, yeah, is concrete. So we've broken through 2 layers of bricks, and behind that seems to be a little bit of concrete, which could be any level of thickness. So we need to go a little bit further and see if we can get through that concrete, and fingers crossed there might be a space behind that. It's heavy going, though.
Half a meter further into the brick and concrete, and the drill bit hits a third, unexpected layer. The bunker of Monte Soratte is about to reveal another of its long-held secrets. In the bunker of Monte Soratte, Connor Woodman is about to discover the truth about what lies behind this brick wall.
You can just see now as you're drilling, and look what we've got. We've got plastic. We've got plastic coming out of the concrete, which.
It's a clue that helps date this section of the tunnel, and it's not promising.
That means the concrete that's behind this brick must have been
Cold War era.
Must have been Cold War era.
During the Cold War, layers of plastic were used to line the 2-meter-thick concrete walls of the nuclear bunker, which means this part of the bunker was built 20 years after the Germans left.
It's full of secrets, isn't it? This bunker, it's full of secrets.
It's incredible.
It looks like the Baron's wall dates from the 60s, and the search for the gold must continue elsewhere in the mountain's tunnels.
72 tons of gold sounds like an awful lot, but really we're just talking about a few cubic meters of gold. In a place this size with 4 kilometers of tunnels, I mean, we're talking about a needle.
Could be everywhere.
It's a needle in a haystack.
Yes, so it's possible.
Connor leaves Gregory to continue the hunt for the gold. In Rome, Robert Edsel is on the trail of the missing Florentine treasures. Of the original Florentine 10, 3 are still missing, location unknown. To find out where he should search next, Robert is meeting General Fabrizio Parulli, head of the Heritage Protection Unit of the Carabinieri, the Italian National Police.
Wow, what a room.
The general is one of the world's go-to investigators of stolen art, and his case files stretch from ancient artifacts to Nazi loot.
How big is this illegal trafficking of cultural objects?
Well, last year, just to give you an idea, we recovered more than 20,600 pieces of art.
And that's just 1 year?
Just 1 year.
Just Italy?
Just Italy. Please.
In 2014, the Carabinieri made headlines with their biggest ever haul of stolen loot. 45 crates containing more than 5,000 ancient Etruscan artifacts.
We are here in our safe.
A nice door. No one's getting in that.
Yeah, it's better to close. But
After guns and drugs, stolen art is the 3rd biggest black market in the world.
So this is essentially like an evidence room while the cases are going on?
Yes.
Nazi loot is part of this global black market, and even after 70 years, it's a top priority for the general.
So how many cases do you have that you're actively working related to World War II?
Well, we have roughly 2,000 cases.
2,000.
We are working hard on this case.
And so you're confident that there are going to be more discoveries of things that have been missing since World War II?
Yes, even if it's a long time that passed, but we are confident to find something more.
The question for Robert is, where should he search? Although it wasn't connected to the Nazis, a clue may lie with the Etruscan art find. It was recovered in Switzerland from behind the walls of the Geneva Freeport, a high-security tax-free storage facility whose clients include art dealers, museums, and collectors. Based on a tip-off and in partnership with the Swiss authorities, the stolen artifacts were seized and returned to Italy.
Is it likely you think that there's some other things in these free ports that are stolen?
Probably yes.
In a growing global art market, Geneva is just one of many free ports, providing secrecy and anonymity to the world's super-rich. Robert goes to Geneva himself to find out more.
Doreen, how are you? Great to meet you.
He's meeting Doreen Carvajal. She's one of the only investigative journalists ever to have seen inside.
The free ports of Geneva.
It doesn't look like much, does it?
The beauty's inside, not outside.
Kind of a modern-day Fort Knox.
Incredible security, bomb-proof doors, magnetic locks, facial recognition, barbed wire.
And you've been in there?
Yes, I've been in there.
No one knows for sure the exact value of what is legally being stored behind these walls, but the best estimate is more than 1 million artifacts worth $500 billion.
Would it surprise you that there might be works of art that were looted by the Nazis or other things that were stolen?
There's one great flaw with the system. There's no overarching inventory control. I think until they do, there won't be real scrutiny of what's in there.
Do you think that they will do a comprehensive inventory? Or that they'll be forced to do it?
No.
The Freeport offers its clients the highest levels of security and privacy, and doesn't welcome the presence of the film crew. As Robert prepares to film on the pavement outside, he's stopped by security.
Hello. Excusez-moi. Est-ce que...
Il n'est pas privé. Ici?
Oui, mais comme vous filmez en direction des ports francs.
They told us we needed to move. Even though we're on public property, the side of the building is in view of the camera, and they say that we can't have that happen. So there's some discussion going on right now, and we may be relocating in a moment.
Robert's request for a formal interview received this reply from the Freeport. Due to internal restructuring, no interviews or on-site filming can be granted in the immediate future.
I wanted to ask them about the objects that are already in the Freeport and that have been there perhaps for decades. What control procedures do they have to vet those objects and make sure that none of them are stolen? Unfortunately, at least today, we're not going to have that opportunity, and I think that's a shame.
Robert leaves Geneva frustrated. But in Milan, the Carabinieri have made another major breakthrough.
Fantastic.
In 1944, these 3 paintings were stolen from the Villa Panor by the Waffen-SS. For 70 years, their location was a mystery, until Captain Francesco Provenza and his team tracked them to a private collector in northern Italy.
Siamo veramente contenti, siamo riusciti a portare a casa.
The picture's so beautiful. These gold grounds are such important pictures, earlier pictures. This looks like a butt of a rifle or something's compressed it, but the condition of it is fantastic.
On the back of the paintings, Robert and Anna find evidence of their secret post-war history.
And you can see here, there was a label right there.
E a volte queste rimozioni sono proprio dolose per non consentire una facile riconduzione alla storia precedente.
These labels or markings are all part of the DNA of the picture. They tell the history of it, they tell the previous ownership. They're important to the value of them.
The hunt for Nazi loot in Italy has taken the team
We are here in our safe.
inside the underground art black market, into the furthest reaches of Mussolini's bunker.
I mean, they just go on and on and on.
To the last Nazi stronghold in Italy, where they uncovered a secret deal with a wanted Nazi war criminal.
He brings in the artwork and says, listen, I'm the man, I can save it.
To one of the most secretive art repositories in the world.
Perhaps some of the missing works of art and cultural treasures that we're looking for are behind the walls of the Geneva Freeport or other freeports like it around the world. But without a full accounting, no one will know. And so the search continues.